Hi, and welcome back to YouTube for Healthy Adolescent Development. I'm Kaylee Cornelson. I'm a trainer, facilitator, and social worker, and I specialize in all things adolescent health and development, including the especially tricky topics like social media, dating, relationships, and identity formation. So this is part 2 on digital dating abuse. You can check out part 1 on my blog or YouTube channel. But today I wanted to talk a little bit more about the what you can do part of supporting a young person who might be experiencing digital dating abuse. In part 1, I talked about definitions, types of digital dating abuse, and a little bit more about what that can look like. And now I wanted to talk more about what we can do as caring adults, whether you're a parent or caregiver or a youth serving professional. So I kind of see this broken down into 2 different buckets, the first being prevention and the second being intervention. So prevention being information and strategies that we can give young people before they get into situations that are unsafe or unhealthy. I have a list of things that I always think young people need to know to have safe and healthy relationships, and that includes things like knowing the difference between love and jealousy. So many times those 2 things get conflated. And how does that show up in a digital space is how you can take that conversation further. I also want them to know the characteristics of healthy, unhealthy, and abusive relationships. So here are the things that make a relationship healthy: respect, communication, understanding, you like the person, they treat you as an equal, all of those different qualities. Versus unhealthy, where maybe they don't treat you like an equal. Maybe they don't listen to you very well. Maybe you get in a lot of arguments or you feel a lot of jealousy, so there's not a lot of trust there. And on the other end of the spectrum, continuing along, abusive characteristics. They're trying to put power and control over me. They're dictating what I do, where I go, how I dress, things like that. Who I follow on social media, how much I have my phone, how quickly I text them back. So really getting specific about behaviors that fall into one of those 3 categories. I also like to talk about relationship rights and red flags. So things like you have the right to your own privacy, you have the right to spend time with your friends, engage in activities you enjoy. And if someone's preventing you from doing those things, those are red flags. And there's many more, but you get the picture. And then also consent and boundaries. I might have a boundary that I don't want to get text messages in the middle of the school day when I'm trying to focus, or during my athletic practice or choir practice or whatever activity I might be involved in. When it comes to digital rights as well, consent can look like asking me before you post a picture of us or say that we're somewhere together. If I don't feel comfortable with that, you don't do it, and you're respecting that. Carrying on with some of those digital rights, young people have the right to say no to a lot of things and set boundaries on a lot of things in the digital space that they might not always be thinking about because there are so many norms around some kind of unhealthy behaviors when it comes to the digital space. So I always like to remind young people that they have the right not to answer a text right away for whatever reason. They have the right to take a break from social media if they feel like it. They have the right to keep their passwords private, silence their notifications during dinner, school, athletic practices, etc. They can say no to sharing photos or videos, especially explicit photos or videos, and they have the right to engage in privacy settings. So just keeping in mind that just because everybody shares passwords, just because everybody sends pictures, doesn't mean that they have to, and allowing them to take that step back and realize that piece. In terms of intervention, so kind of moving on to that other bucket, I really like the acronym RADAR out of the Massachusetts Medical Society Committee on Violence Intervention and Prevention. And so RADAR stands for routine universal screening, asking direct questions, documenting, assessing for safety, and reviewing options, responding, and referring. So some of these are going to be more or less relevant if you're a parent versus if you're a professional, but let me go through each one of them a little bit more in depth. So if you are doing routine screening as a professional, you want to have a question on your screener about dating violence And if you have room, also digital dating abuse. So it can all be lumped into one question, but make sure you're asking about that. As a parent, caregiver, or professional, ask direct questions about unhealthy dating behaviors when it comes to social media. So questions might be things like, has your partner ever prevented you from using your cell phone, computer, or other device? Has your partner ever posted things to social media that you didn't want posted? Has your partner ever pressured you to send explicit photos or videos? So really getting specific about those things, because sometimes things are happening that young people aren't thinking of as unhealthy or abusive. And when you get some more specific questions, you can get clearer picture about what's going on. So then the D in radar is about documentation. So that's really about if these digital dating abuse situations are going on and that young person doesn't feel safe, it can be really helpful to document what's going on. So that means taking screenshots, saving emails, saving direct messages, again, taking screenshots of those things. So if they decide that they want to take steps like asking for protections at school, asking for legal protections, they don't have to do any of those things. But if they decide that they want to, having some documentation can be really helpful. Assessing for safety, asking young people about their mental, emotional, and physical safety is really important. So checking to see if they're having any suicidal ideation, any feelings of harming themselves. All of those things can come up when they're in an abusive relationship, even a digitally abusive relationship, because the research shows us that young people who experience digital dating abuse often are experiencing some form of dating violence in person as well. So checking for safety mentally, emotionally, and physically. So do they need someone to walk them to their car? Do they need someone to walk with them in between classes? Do they need to pursue any sort of other protective measures, like finding out if that person has a weapon in their home or has access to any sort of weapon? Getting to know their situation a little bit can help you figure that out. So if the person's never been physical, that's going to be a good sign. But if they've made threats about physical violence, that's something that I would also pay attention to. I would also say too, if you are a parent or caregiver, get a professional involved, get a therapist involved, get a caseworker involved, get someone at school involved. Those folks have likely dealt with something like this in the past and have really good ideas about how to keep someone safe. If it feels safe, involving law enforcement might be a good option, again, depending on that young person's identities and their preferences. That might be making the situation more unsafe for them. So definitely take that into account. If you're a professional and this isn't your particular scope of practice, definitely get connected with other professionals in your community and or an organization like Love is Respect, which has a text line, a chat, and a hotline that young people and professionals can both get support from. When it comes to safety planning, there are a lot of things that folks can do to digitally keep themselves safe. So I already talked a little bit about keeping them safe physically and checking in for emotional safety, but they can also do things like changing their passwords, unfollowing, defriending, or blocking someone. Disabling location sharing is a big one, and checking in for places where they might not know that they're sharing their location. Sometimes we're doing that and we don't even realize it. Blocking phone numbers, and then also maybe taking a little social media break if that feels good to them, and asking friends not to post them for a while, again, if that feels good to them. Keep in mind that any singular safety measure may or may not be the safest for any individual person. I really, really like the teen-specific safety plan that Love is Respect has on their site, and I'll link that below. But it gets you thinking a little bit about what are teen-specific things to think about and ask about, but really defer to the young person's knowledge of their self and their own situation. When someone is trying to leave an abusive relationship is the most dangerous time, because that other person is losing their sense of power and control. So definitely acknowledge the young person as an expert in their own experience and give them all the options that you might have available. So those are a couple of things that I would do in terms of prevention and intervention when it comes to digital dating abuse. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope to see you again next time.